afternoon, everybody. Today is May the 5th of 2012, and I am J.R. Hall from J.R.'s Steelhead Adventures. And in the next few weeks, or the first weekend of June, most or a lot of the rivers in the state of Washington are going to open up for summer steelhead fishing. And this is really a great time of the year to take a look at all of your fishing gear and to check it out to make sure that everything is working great. Also a good time of the year to check your fishing line. And so what I have with me is one of my spinning rods here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the spinning rod and I'm just going to take a look at every guide on the spinning rod to make sure that the ceramic inserts aren't cracked or chipped, or sometimes you'll find, particularly with the top guides, the smaller ones, the ceramic inserts have come completely out. What happens is that those that stuff rubs on this fishing line and it creates nicks and burrs in the fishing line, and fewer things in life are harder to deal with than having a really, really nice, beautiful, chrome bright fish on that you lose because the line has snapped where you had a burr or something in the line. So take a moment to take a look and check all of the guides on the rod to make sure that that the ceramic inserts are there and they're nice and smooth. No burrs in those. The other thing that I do is I just give these guides a little bit of a tug, and what I'm doing is just making sure that they're still attached to the rod. Sometimes they'll come loose, and so just take a look, give them a couple of nice little tugs there, and make sure that they're still seated inside the wraps and attached to the rod. Secondly, I want to take a look at the fishing line, and what I'm looking for is I'm looking to make sure that this line still has that new shiny sheen that you find when you buy this stuff new, and if I'm not quite sure, what I'll do is I'll take a spool of new stuff and I'll compare the new stuff to the stuff that's on the reel, just to take a look and see if it's how old it is. I can usually gauge that. Now, I usually replace the line on my reel about once every year, and I usually do that about the first of the year. Sometime around January, I'll just replace the lines on my reel. This line, it's so important that the line is in good shape and that it's new. And so the other thing that's really important to do is to make sure that that I keep this rod out of direct sunlight. Extended exposure to sunlight damages this monofilament line. I don't know if you've ever seen trucks headed down the road and they've got fishing rods in that truck, in the rifle holder, in the back of their truck, right? And what happens is that sun comes through that glass, and extended exposure to direct sunlight damages this monofilament line. And so what I do is I make sure not to leave this in the car. I don't leave it in direct sunlight. At the end of the day, I make sure to take it out of the truck and stow it in the garage so that it's not in contact with direct sunlight. The other thing I would recommend that you do is at the end of the day, when you're all done fishing, take a moment to back the drag off of these reels. This rod has been sitting in the rod holder in my garage for a month and a half or so now, and you can see how easy this line is coming off of this reel. At the end of the day, when I get done fishing, I take all the pressure off of these drag washers and I stow the rod with the drag loose. And what that does is it takes the pressure off of those drag washers. You'll get more life out of the drag washers, and you'll get that continuous smooth drag when these fish decide to go for a run on you. So particularly for winter fish. So just back the drag off, take the pressure off, and you'll get more life out of the drags on these things. So the next thing I want to talk to you about just real quickly is I teach a number of clinics in the area, and one of the most common questions I get asked at these clinics is, how do I know what size corky to match with the hook? And that is a really very, very good question. June is kind of that transition period between the winter water and our summer water, our summer fish. And but the challenge is that we get that sun is going to burn off that it's going to melt away that snow, and the rivers are going to come up, and the temperatures are going to go down, and we are going to, in essence, have winter temperatures for summer fish. And as you well know, steelhead, regardless of the time of year, will react the same in a given temperature of water. And so, so early in the season, when those temperatures drop, these summer fish are going to act exactly like winter fish do, right? And so as the temperatures drop and the colors come up, we're going to go to bigger presentation, bigger corkies and the such. So the question is, how do I know if I'm fishing with a corky too big? And here's a very simple guide I'm going to give you on how to determine your hook size. So we're going to zero in on what I have here on the table, and I'll show you how to do this. What I have here is I have size 2 and size 1, 1/0, 2/0, and 3/0 hooks. So here we have, as you can see, we've got a number of corkies and some spinning glows. And for those old school steelhead fishermen, we have the old Okie drifters. I love these Okie drifters. I started fishing these about 30 years ago. I still have an ample supply of them in the garage, and they are just like gold. They're very difficult to find, but they fish really well, and I just love to use them. So how do we match our hook size to our corky? And here's how you do it, quite simply. So if I'm fishing water that's low, has low temperatures, and there's color in the water, so our visibility is, say, between 2 and 6 feet. So I know I'm probably going to be fishing with brighter presentations, bigger, brighter presentations. And so if I'm going to be fishing, say, with this Okie drifter here, this is a hot pink Okie drifter. And so the question is, what size hook am I going to fish with this? And so let's start with the size 2. This is our simplest, very simple, quick gauge to determine the correct hook size for the type of corky or spin and glow that I'm going to fish. So I'm going to start with a size 1 hook. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the hook and my corky, and I'm going to see if the corky will pass easily through the gap in the hook. If it doesn't, then I need to go up a size in my hook. Now this is a size 2 hook, and as you can see, this Okie drifter will not pass through the eye or through the opening in this hook. So I'll need to go up a size in my hook. So I know that the size 1 is too small. So I'm going to go to a size 1/0. And so now I've got a size 1/0 hook. I'm using the same Okie drifter that I started with. And again, I'm going to try to pass the Okie drifter through the gap in the hook. And I want to be able to pass that through there relatively easily. And I can see there that it does. I can see the Okie drifter isn't hanging up. Maybe just a little bit. Let's just double check that. Well, yeah, it is hanging up a little bit there. So now I'm going to go up a size and hook. This is a size 1/0 barbless. Now I'm going to make the switch from a 1/0 to a 2/0 barbless. Or this hook is barbed, so I would pinch this before I fished it. So now I've gone up a size. This is a size 2/0 hook. Again, I'm using the same Okie drifter that I started with, and I'm going to try to pass this Okie drifter through the guide through the gap in the hook. And again, it's hanging up. It's hanging up just a little bit. It's passing through there okay, but it's hanging up. So what I'm going to do is pinch the barb, because that's how I would fish this anyways. give it one more go. Now with this barb flattened out completely, now I'm going to take the Okie drifter, and again, I'm going to try to pass it through the gap in this 2/0 hook, and it doesn't do it. It's still, the Okie drifter is still too big. Now this isn't an incredibly large Okie drifter. When I compare it in size to the smallest Corkies that we can buy, that's the smallest Corky that we can buy there. This is our next size up. This is the next size up. And so you can see that it's not much bigger than the next size up, and certainly just a hair bigger than one of these large Corkies. So I was at a 2/0 hook. It was still a bit too small. So now we're going to go to a 3/0 hook. This is a size 3/0 barbless hook. I'm going to take the Okie drifter, and again, I'm going to pass it through the eye of the hook, and I want to be able to pass that through there without it hanging up. And there we go. That passes through there. There's just the slightest hint of a gap on either side, and it passes through the gap in the hook easily and isn't getting hung up. And so with this size Okie drifter, I would use a size 3/0 hook, and I would put a little bit of yarn on there. So now let's go to the next size up in just the round, in the standard round Corky that we use today. So using the 3/0 hook, I'll take this round Corky, and again I'm going to pass it through the eye, and I see that that's still, there's a lot of movement in there. So with this one, let's go down a size and hook and see what happens. Here's my 2/0 hook with the pinched barb. I'll take this Corky, and I see that it easily passes through. It passes through the opening in this hook without hanging up. And so for this round, for this size round Corky, I would use a size 2/0 hook. The reason that we do this is if the hook is too small, when the fish hits your bait, they'll get the bait, but the bait will prevent them from getting to the barb on the hook. So that's how we determine what's the right size hook for the types of Corkies that we're going to be presenting to Steelhead. Very simple and quick way to do that. So there you have it. Take some time and check your gear, check your fishing poles, check the guides. Very important to check the line on that you're using, and keep it out of direct sunlight or extended exposures to sunlight over time. And now you have a very simple and quick guide for how to determine the right size Corkies or the right hook for the size Corkies that you're going to be throwing. So stay tuned to my website. Here in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to show you how to tie a double egg loop setup for throwing beads at summer steelhead in very low, clear water conditions. Absolutely deadly technique. So stay tuned, and you can find these videos on my website at Steelhead, the letter N, Winucci.com, and then just click on JR's Steelhead Adventures. Again, I'm JR Hall of JR Steelhead Adventures, and thanks for taking the time to watch this video.